big news broke a few hours ago. Brian Flores, who you'll remember, did a very good job in Miami. In fact, according to his lawsuit, too good of a job. And he was fired this year. And the reasoning that was put out there, Rob, the stuff that was leaked to reporters was that Flores was difficult to work with.
Yep.
So they definitely put a bad, word out there on him. And we said it ourselves, that it would be hard for him to get a job this go-round this year, even though he's did a great job in Miami, because they put it out there that he's hard to work with. And so Flores, who is at least in name in the running for some of these other jobs that are out there, Rob, there's still 4 jobs left, 5 jobs, that are left.
Well, one guy who won't get a job is Brian Flores. We already know that.
Right. And his name is, but before the lawsuit, his name had been mentioned, in connections with some of these jobs. But here's some of the allegations in his lawsuit where he alleges racial discrimination against the NFL. And some of it's not just race. It's just foul stuff going on.
And he also mentioned the Dolphins and Giants in the lawsuit, separately. Right. Yes. Giants, Dolphins, and the league as a whole.
And one more team.
Was it one more?
Who was the other team? Giants, Dolphins, and Broncos.
And Broncos,
because he mentioned an interview he had with the Broncos. So here's some of the allegations. The owner in Miami, Stephen Ross, when Flores coached the Dolphins. Now remember, Rob, tank for Tua. The whole mantra of 2019 was tank for Tua. The team was supposed to be horrible, and they started out that way. And then Flores gets them to get on a little win streak, and they play well at the end of the season and win 5 games and end up 5-11. And he alleges Flores, that the owner, Stephen Ross, offered to pay him $100,000 for each loss.
That goes against everything you do, Chris, as a coach.
And said to him, you're messing up our plan because you're winning too much. That's a paraphrase. And so they wanted to tank, which is against the integrity of what? The Shield. We always hear, Rob, it's about the Shield. So there's that. Then he alleges that Stephen Ross, the owner, in 2019, before free agency began,
right
after this season, before free agency began in July, in the summer, that Stephen Ross set up a meeting for them, the brain trust in Miami, including Flores, to meet with Tom Brady, who, remember, was leaving the Patriots.
Right.
And Flores says Ross almost tricked him. Like, they went out on the boat, and Ross told him, hey, it's going to be a surprise guest, and it was going to be Brady. And so Flores left before he could meet with him because he knew it was tampering. So that's another, thing that he's alleging. Then, Rob, and this is kind of humorous with Belichick, but it's happened to, it happened to the
this
best
happens,
of us, right?
Chris, so often where people text, I'll give you one real quick. In the old days before texting, the Lions owner, William Clay Ford, the Lions were making a quarterback change. He called the wrong quarterback. I think it was like Rodney Peete and Andre Ware to congratulate him, and he called the wrong guy who was actually losing his job. You know what I mean?
Calling is even a little, that's a little hard.
And he left a voicemail like, congratulations on you being a new quarterback.
And you're being benched, right? Right. But anyway, so before Brian Flores was set to interview, he had the interview scheduled with the New York Giants. He gets a text from Belichick saying, I talked with Buffalo and New York, the Giants, and you're the guy. And Flores texts him back like, remember, Flores worked for Belichick. He texts him back like for clarification, like, what? And then Belichick hits him back, oh, I effed this up. My bad. I'm paraphrasing a little bit.
Right.
This was meant, it wasn't meant for you. He said, I think they're hiring Brian Daboll. So Belichick meant to text Daboll.
Because he thought he got the job.
So why would he say, right, because he apparently Belichick had been told, because he said, I talked to people in Buffalo. Now, you wouldn't talk to people in Buffalo about Flores.
No.
And in New York with the Giants. And you're the guy.
It was a done deal, Chris, right?
Yes, and that's what Flores is alleging. Before I even went into the interview, because you needed to comply with the Rooney Rule, you already made your decision not to hire me. And Rob, this is actually playing out right before our eyes. There is the text from Todd Furman, puts out there, and this is Albert Breer. He's actually retweeting. Albert Breer, we know, Monday morning quarterback and all that. He says the Vikings finished up. This was texted at 4:15 today. The Vikings finished up a 9-hour interview with Giants defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, who's black.
Who is black,
with
right?
Graham meeting with people throughout the organizations. He talks about that. And then a text comes out later, a story. Sources. Jim Harbaugh plans to sign with the Minnesota Vikings.
And it says, Chris, it's a done deal. It's just a formality, like signing the paperwork. So
the 9-hour interview with Patrick Graham was BS. It was just to go through the motions and again, meet the standards of the Rooney Rule, in which you have to interview an African-American. But they always knew it was Jim Harbaugh. And look, I'll say this. In Minnesota, they do have an African-American GM. They just hired him, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. And then in Miami as well, where Flores was fired from, they also have an African-American GM. There's 3 in the league, 3 black GMs. And right now, Rob, there are 5 openings left. But of the 27 jobs that are filled with head coaches, 1 African-American. And here's the thing about that 1 African-American, Mike Tomlin. He's never had a losing season. That's the bar for black coaches. Right. You got to do something historic, right? Can't have a losing season. Got to win a Super Bowl, which Tomlin has done, right?
You can be Josh McDaniels and cheat, and you get a new job and a new situation. It's so bad. Let me tell you.
And cheat and be unsuccessful at
and unsuccessful.
What you did.
Right, exactly. Both. And move up to draft Tim Tebow. Can I throw that in as a third piece, Chris?
But
anyway, this is the NFL. This has been going on forever. It's not going to change. Any league that has to put in a rule that you even have to interview. You know why they made that people have to interview black people? Black coaches?
Because they
weren't getting
Chris. Interviews, right?
They weren't on no interviews. It was embarrassing.
The Rooney
It would be
Rule
one
was
thing if there were no black people in the league.
Right.
You're taking coaches. Guys play. We're good enough to play in the league, but we can't coach? Says who? Says who?
Well, for the youngins out there, you're right. They're essentially saying we can't coach.
Right.
We can't run franchises. Just like they said we couldn't play safety because that was right. That was a cerebral position. Just like we couldn't play quarterback. Now look at the quarterback position. So there's always, in fact, Rob, believe it or not, I'm going back 120 years. Back in the end of the 19th century, the early 20th century, so late 1800s, early 1900s, there was the myth out there that blacks couldn't play sports because we couldn't handle the pressure, we couldn't think well enough on the go, and that we'd crumble. Now think about how foolish that sounds today. When you look at the NBA, when you look at Major League Baseball historically, you look at the NFL, we can't play sports. So unfortunately in this country, at every turn, we have been discriminated against. And here's the difference. On the football field, on the basketball court, in the boxing ring, on the track, it is objective. It is objective.
Yes.
Even then, they still kept us from playing quarterback, still kept us from playing certain
Chris, I remember when there wasn't a black center in football, like the guy who hikes the ball.
Oh, that's a
right. The guy who hikes the ball.
So you can't do that as a black center. But on the court, this is why you can't compare sports to affirmative action. Because on the field, it's objective. And if I want to win, which is obviously the goal of every team and GM, if I want to keep my job, then I can't worry about the color. If he's white but he's better, I gotta have him. If he's black but he's better, I gotta have him because I gotta win. And that's why African Americans have been able to have largely an equal playing field on the field.
Right.
But in the front office, on the bench, it's subjective as heck. What are the freaking qualifications? And that's what this lawsuit is ultimately about. What are the qualifications? If you don't have qualifications, then how in the world are we supposed to get the job?
Exactly.
We've been offensive coordinators. We've been defensive coordinators.
Now you're not picking those guys, Chris. Now you're not picking those guys.
Who coached quarterbacks in high school, may get a job. Joe Judge, 30-something years old, a special teams coach, got a job. And Josh McDaniels, who you just said, failed in Denver, cheated in Denver, gets a job. I mean, what are we talking about? And some of these guys now, Ken Dorsey, Brian Daboll, coordinators on successful teams, Rob. Well, where's Leftwich? Where's Todd Bowles? This is racist, period. That's all it is. And this is why in certain aspects of America, you had to have quotas. You had to have affirmative action because a lot of times whites would not hire African Americans or other people of color unless they absolutely are forced to. And that's what this lawsuit may do, Rob. Force them to do something different.
It is unbelievable where we are. And I'm going to say this. Brian Flores is, I respect him ultimately and highly, Chris, to step out there. To make change in the world, Chris, comes sacrifice. We can sit here all we want. People have to sacrifice to make changes. The powers that be don't just all of a sudden go, oh, yeah, you know what? We have been negligent.
Absolutely.
Here you go. What were we thinking? No.
Absolutely.
They don't until they're forced to, until you let them know that we're not going to accept it anymore. And Brian Flores said, you know what, the hell with it.
One guy.
Yes. But that's all. But it usually could start with one.
Group.
Yeah, right. But it should be a group, Chris. We talk about it. You can make things happen when you have power in numbers.
Yep.
And if you had a strong players association that says this league's 70% black, no, you're going to have jobs for us when we finish playing. Why shouldn't we? We know the game. We can play the game. We can be GMs. We can be front office people, Chris, scouts. We can do all those jobs. We know the game just as well as anybody else.
Absolutely.
So here we are. Absolutely. We want to hear from you, too, on this.